Alright, so welcome back to another video, and today I'm gonna be talking about like the hidden world of cheerleading, which is mascotting. Some people that follow my Instagram may know that a couple months ago I revealed that I was one of the original performers chosen to bring back the mascotting program over at IU. And with that experience, there's a couple things of mascotting that a lot of people overlook, or I'm just gonna talk about like some of the common questions that I get, or just like some of the takeaways that I've gotten from the experience. But we'll get into that later. So first, I want to talk about how I got into the program. So I was originally trying out to join the IU cheer team, and I remember like when I saw the presentation with the skill requirements and everything for the tryouts. There was a small little snippet about mascotting, which I thought was kind of weird because last I remembered, IU didn't have a mascot. I do remember my dad telling me years ago that IU used to have a mascot a long time ago, but as far as I knew, there was no mascot at IU, so I was a little thrown off by that section, but I just ignored it because, well, I was trying out for cheer, I wasn't trying out for mascotting. But while at tryouts, one of the coaches had come up to me and asked, like, hey, if you don't like, if you don't get a cheerleading position, would you prefer, like, would you be okay with doing a mascotting position? And they were listing off some of the benefits and stuff, and all the benefits, it sort of sounded like the same benefits as an IU cheerleader, except it would be like a part-time position I get paid for, and it was like, sure, same benefits. I'm basically doing the same thing, except instead of cheerleading, I'm mascotting, and I'm getting paid, so yeah, I'll do it. So that's actually how I ended up getting into the program. And then at the time, they had said, oh yeah, we already have another person that's joining in. And then before like our first meeting even happened, I found out, oh, we also added two more. And so there was a total of 5 of us by the time our first meeting came around. And then one of the most common questions I get is it hot inside the costume? Yes, it is a mascotting costume. People get hot in their Halloween costumes. People get hot in their cosplays when they're going to conventions. Yes, it is very hot in a mascotting costume. Like, especially Hoosier the Bison's costume. Just, it might as well be like wearing a full body, like, fur puffer jacket basically all day long. So imagine like the fur puffer jacket that you have in your closet, to put that on this summer and go step outside and tell me if it's hot or not, because that's a good depiction of how hot it was in the costume for us, other than the fact that, like, of course we had like the pants and the head and the gloves and everything. But yes, it is very, very hot inside the costume. I remember it got to the point where a couple of like the mascot performers, they were literally like sweating through the actual fur part of the costumes, and it was like getting onto like the football jerseys and stuff. And oh my god, it just, no, like you sweat a lot in it. Next common question I get is if it's just a single person or is it an entire team. And contrary to popular belief, most of the time it's a team that does it, not so much a single person. Maybe in high school and middle school you can get away with it just being one person, and they just like go in the costume whenever the school needs them to, and so on. But I know at the very least at the college level, it's, for the most part, it's usually like college level onwards is like full on teams of mascot people, where, like, let's say there's one person in the costume that's the performer, then there would be like these people called handlers, which they would basically be like mascots, like bodyguard and the mascot's voice, because when you're in the costume you can't talk, can't laugh, none of that stuff. So you have these other people here to be like, oh hey, Hoosier the Bison, he has a tight schedule, he has to go now, or oh, you want a picture with Hoosier, here, let me take that picture for you, and then go ahead and get you on your way. Or if somebody's like roughhousing with Hoosier and like pulling, or like any of the mascots and like pulling on the mascot costume and stuff, the handlers would be like, hey, step away, don't mess with the costume, and stuff like that. So there is like multiple people, and then like if let's say one person just did a shift and then a new performer's going out, that performer that just did that shift, they typically go like rest up really quick, they go shower, yada yada yada, do what they need to do, freshen up, because like I said, the costumes are very hot and you will sweat in them. Like there's times where like even in the winter you will sweat through them still, just because it is so hot in those costumes. Some of them are pretty breathable, but at least Hoosiers, it was all fur, so it's like, you know, it gets pretty hot. Now, a key thing that I noticed between mascoting and cheerleading while I was there is that with cheerleading, it's sort of like when people think of like a school's cheerleaders, they think of the entire cheer team, not just, you know, you specifically, unless they know you personally. So if you don't know, let's use the IU cheerleaders for example. Let's say you don't know any of the IU cheerleaders personally, or don't know them like individually. When you think of IU cheerleaders, you just think of their entire cheer team rather than a single cheerleader or stuntman or coach. But with mascoting, when you think of like a school mascot, you don't think of like the school mascot and like the entire mascoting team, because, well, first of all, you shouldn't know who your entire mascoting team is, because a lot of schools, they keep that pretty private, or at least they try to. But you only think of the mascot, the one and only mascot, and then especially even at games, people are like, oh, IU cheerleaders, and then they go up to like whatever IU cheerleaders they can reach up to at that point in time, and whoever's like most convenient and stuff. But with a mascot, it's like, oh my god, it's the one and only mascot, I need to go to him specifically. You know, so I feel like mascoting, it's, if you want to be more in that spotlight where it's just you, then mascoting is the way to go, just because of that, because everybody goes to you specifically. They think like you're that character, they want to meet that one and single character, not a whole group of people, you know. So that spotlight is just on you when you're performing and you're in that suit. Now, this may seem like a silly thing to bring up, but there was a lot more marketing work with mascoting than I expected there to be, which, like, I get it, that's like mascoting, so it's like branding and advertising. You know, a mascot's literally just a walking billboard for whatever brand or university that mascot represents, but there's a lot more to it than I thought there would be, because other than like the practices of us practicing like Hoosiers habits and stuff like that, it was basically just spent in like meeting rooms where we would talk about different marketing things, like, oh, what's upcoming in this next football game as far as like marketing stuff goes, that we need to go over, and what are some like marketing ideas that we can use in the future. And it was a whole lot of that, and that sort of threw me for a loop. I was like, this is a lot more than I thought there would be. Like, this is a lot more marketing. Like, they were very involved with us, and they very much so like talked to us a lot, which, yeah, that just sort of caught me a bit off guard. I always thought that it was just going to be like, if before this whole experience, I always thought with mascoting it was like, hey, when you're in the costume, do this. Hey, this is gonna happen at so and so time when you're in the costume, so be prepared. But no, they have everything like all scheduled out, and everything's already planned and everything. And so yeah, that was just a lot more than what I expected. The other thing is whether or not mascoting could turn into a career, because recently cheerleading has become one of those things where it could become an actual career, where you can see like a lot of people like Gabby Butler, Colin Cockrell, where they make a social media presence with branding and everything, but with the pro cheerleading league out now, like they have stable careers now as cheerleaders. So it's just like, yeah, that's becoming an actual career. But before, the pro cheerleading league and stuff, for the hidden world of cheerleading, for mascots, it was always sort of like a job that they could do even after college. So there's like some companies where they hire mascots. Like, I know Pop-Tart, they have a mascot where it goes into like this giant toaster, and then they bring out like a little life-size actual edible Pop-Tart of him later on that everybody can eat. uh and yeah, and there's obviously like the NFL mascots and stuff like that. So yeah, they're like mascoting was and still is like a job and a career that you can still do even after college. And I will say there's something unique about mascoting. I'm not sure what exactly it is, but it's one of those things where like you do it. Once you do it, at the time you may think that like, oh, this isn't for me and stuff like that. But once you're done doing it, there's a small part of you, if not all of you, that just wants to go back to doing mascoting, even though you kept telling yourself like, oh, this isn't for me, I want to break from this. Like I've met a bunch of people during my experience here where they had all said like they had a point in their lives where they were like, okay, I'm done with mascoting, I'm tired of it, I'm gonna focus on something new and something different. Then like 2 months later they'll be like, actually I want to go back to being a mascot. And they'll go look for a new mascoting job somewhere. And yes, they do some of the people, they do have these as like their actual careers. That part was just crazy to me, that like, this can turn into like an actual career rather than just like a side gig that you do. So it's one of those few like extracurriculars that you can start on that you like, there's a pretty decent job market for. Now the other thing is that I feel like a lot of people overlook when it comes to mascoting is just how physically strenuous it is, and like how mentally strenuous it is, because I had already mentioned how hot it gets, but once you put that head on, the mascot's head on, it becomes like 10,000 times harder to breathe in that thing. Like after I work out, I go into saunas and stuff, and I know a lot of people, they already, like, that I've gone into the sauna with, they already mentioned that it's a lot harder to breathe once they're in the sauna just because of how hot everything is. Imagine that, but on top of like how hot everything is, you're also like breathing like a straw. That might be a little bit of an over exaggeration, because Hoosier's head was actually a lot more breathable than it looks. But I know for some mascots, like it's rough, and they got to keep up that, like, that jolly, happy, super cartoony vibe that entire time while under extreme heat and breathing through a straw. So it's a lot more physically strenuous and mentally strenuous than a lot of people like think it is. A lot of people say like, oh, it's easy and stuff, and that's what I thought too. But once like I was in the full gear and had the head on and everything, it was just like, ooh, this is a lot rougher than I thought it would be. And yeah, even like professionals, they even struggle with it from time to time. Now the next thing is, well, whether or not like mascoting is part of cheerleading, or whether or not mascoting is its own separate thing. Now me personally, I just thought it was like a small subsection of cheerleading, just simply due to the fact that like UCA, the University Cheerleading Association, for nationals, they literally have like their own section for mascoting, and like there's UCA camps where it's for mascoting specifically. And I just feel like if mascoting was its own separate thing, then it's, there would be a whole nother thing for it. It wouldn't just be under UCA, it would be its own thing, like UMA. And then, which I guess it is sort of like cheerleading, because as a mascot you are sort of helping helping the cheerleaders into leading the crowd into those cheers and chants and stuff like that. So there's that. But yeah. And then that actually leads me into my next thing, which I went to that past summer. I went to the college UCA camp specifically for mascoting, and when I told people about that, they're like, mascot camp? What? it's mascoting. What all is there for you to learn within like that 4-day camp? And I was like, yeah, I know. It may not seem like there's much to learn, which I will say a vast majority of that time was just us playing games, but those games were actually part of the training, because a lot of those games required us to act like on the spot, and just, well, act in general without saying anything. So it may seem like just like little games on the surface, but in reality it was actually like training for when you are in the costume and when you do have to act 24/7, because they tell you like, hey, when you're in the costume, almost every second once you're in public, there's not going to be a second where nobody's watching you. You are the mascot. There's going to be at least one person watching you the second you step out in public. They basically just had us do games so we could practice acting 24/7. The other thing is I don't think a lot of people, they like understand just how much potential there is in mascoting when it comes to networking and stuff like that. Like I remember my first game over at IU, right before kickoff and everything, I saw Kurt Signetti. He was literally walking in the halls and about to head out to the field and stuff, and we were all walking beside him, and things were really quiet. I get that he had like two, was it two? He had like a security guard or two on him, walking with him, and I get that, he's the big man, so don't mess with him or anything like that. But I was like, this is awkwardly quiet, so I sort of broke the ice, and I talked to him for a little bit, and it wasn't like anything like too drastic. I just simply asked like, can we expect another win today, coach? And he said, I don't like have expectations, I just coach and hope. And I thought that was a really funny answer. But yeah, no, you get like cool opportunities like that where you can talk to like college celebrities. Like, I got to talk to Kurt Signetti and stuff, and it's a good chance to just network with a lot of people that most people don't really have access to, or they would at least pay like high dollar to even just have a small conversation with them. So that was a really cool thing about mascoting that I don't think a lot of people know about, or at the very least a lot of people miss. Which now that comes to my final question, which is better, mascoting or cheerleading? And between the two, I'm sorry, but me personally, I gotta give it to cheerleading. I like cheerleading more. Like I get that there's all those cool opportunities with being mascots and like networking and stuff, but unless you're going into like trying to get into like the mascoting business or like something like that, like a lot of the networking, it's not going to help you too much, and stuff like that. And then like other than that, the sort of like appeal of standing outside all day and sweating bullets while in this big furry costume all day, which I get, it's Hoosier, you're the mascot, it's really cool and stuff like that, which I'll completely admit that it is very, very cool. But something about just tossing up a little human being like 30 feet in the air and catching them and having them do backflips while I catch them and stuff just seems a lot more cooler to me. And like doing it, at least I personally enjoy a lot more than mascoting in itself. So yeah, but in my personal opinion, I like cheerleading more, but I know there's a lot of people that they like mascoting over cheerleading. Some people feel neutral, and then some people are with me where it's like cheerleading they like more than mascoting. So there is no like which is better, but that's just my personal preference. I just personally prefer cheerleading. But yeah, that was my experience and my like takeaways, and just answering a couple questions that I get a lot about mascoting, given my experience over at IU. Yeah, if you want to see more videos like this, then make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and comment down below. And if you want like more videos about like being Hoosier specifically, then please let me know, and I can make more videos about that. There are going to be more cheerleading focused videos coming out hopefully soon. That's it for now. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.